I was born and raised in New Jersey, so this movie really spoke to me. Yeah, I was born in New Brunswick, grew up in New Brunswick.
Rutgers. That's Brian
Yeah,
O'Halloran country. That's where we shot the first scene in Clerks is Brian falling out of a closet. We shot in New Brunswick.
amazing. Yeah. I went to Rutgers. My parents work at Rutgers. I'm in Jersey City as we speak. So yeah, this entire story really spoke to me. But I'm interested in the story because your career is obviously not over. It's clearly not.
I don't know. It depends who you ask, Vinny.
I mean,
it's
yeah,
over
yeah.
for a long time for a lot.
I guess the opinion is out there, but like you're still working. So I'm wondering for both of you why this was the time to sort of take stock and look back when it's not you're not at a point where you can only look back. So I'm wondering why this was the time to sort of take stock of it.
We're hitting the 25-year point, and that's traditionally a good it just seemed, and Kevin's kind of career was going on this completely fascinating other path, and
i.e. unsuccessful.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's that thing. Wait 5 years, like everything Kevin does. But right now he's at the end of a very fascinating time, where he's kind of gone on this incredible fucking journey. And so for the first 25 years, I think it was best to just okay, and I was around for a lot of it, so I was like, okay, this seems like a good time to kind of take a look back at it and just be like, all right, well, there was this. And then, and hopefully in 25, I mean, I won't be alive, but in 25 years, there'll be another kind of 25 years to look at. But it seemed like a good increment.
Well, outlive us all, Malcolm. Let's be honest.
It's optimistic.
He honestly, this wouldn't happen without Malcolm. If another person had come to me and said, we want to do a documentary about you, I would have been like, too soon, way too soon. And I've had documentaries about the stuff I've done, on the DVDs, like the Snowball Effect on Clerks 10. So we've definitely had look backs and whatnot. And so there was no pressing need to do it. But Malcolm has been around for this entire journey, and he's an interesting person to capture it because I didn't grow up with him. It's not like he's Muse or Brian Johnson or Walter Flanagan. I met Malcolm like the way we're meeting. Malcolm interviewed me for Film Threat at the Toronto Film Festival, back in 94, before the movie, right before Clerks came out theatrically. So we struck up a kinship and whatnot, and I helped him get his first movie made and financed it and whatnot. And we've been friends ever since. And he's unlike most of my friends who are like blood or something like that, who are there from childhood. Malcolm has always been acutely unafraid of telling me when I've lost it, when I've fucked up, when I've lost the thread of the conversation. Who do you think you are? But never also the person that held me back, because Malcolm's also been the guy that has encouraged me to spin that plate and stuff. I don't get to do all the weird things I've done without Malcolm over the years, letting me know where I'm in the business. Because when you are doing yourself masturbatorily, professionally for a living, you can't really look up and figure out where you are because there's no one to compare it to. You can't be like, oh, well, Ed Burns is doing the same thing. Let me see how Ed Burns is doing. So for me, it was always tough to figure out, am I successful or not? Malcolm, as an outsider who's also an insider, has always been able to tell me when I'm working in the culture and when I'm not. And he's been painfully accurate in all those times and stuff. So he's a guy that, for better or for worse, knows how to read my career without the added interest of I'm his mother, or something like that. Malcolm has almost played me like an avatar for many years, in as much as this is what I would do if I was you, with this kind of access, with this kind of thing. And one of the greatest things he ever did was never told me to be the one thing. He was never concentrate on your fucking film craft and get good at that and fuck all these other distractions. Malcolm was always do the other things, make those, why wouldn't you lean into that? He's going, it's if you could either be a filmmaker or you could be like a rock star. And he's filmmaking's fun, but you have people who are willing to just watch you talk. You don't even need the movies anymore. So having him, when he suggested, he was I could do a documentary about your first 25 years. It came off of this book discussion we were having. And he was instead of writing a book, I could take a camera with me, interview these people, and it could be a documentary. And I'd produced documentaries Malcolm's made before. So I knew he knew how to do that. Mm-hmm. I also knew he had a very particular insight where, he'd be unafraid to go warts and all and shit like that. And plus I'd be completely comfortable with him and giving him access. Like if you ever watch the interview tapes, it's like this. Malcolm goes, so 25 years. And then I talk for 6 hours. And Malcolm, like, you know, I'm a very easy mark to get an interview out of and stuff. So it was the right guy asking at the right time. As he said, when he first asked, we were coming close to like the 25th anniversary of Clerks or something like that. And so, you know, it felt like, all right, I guess there's enough time to look back. And then when I almost dropped dead from the heart attack, Malcolm's face lit up like, oh, money.
Perfect,
We have a
perfect.
act, you know.
You know what's funny? I just remembered now, you know, the first time I ever mentioned doing a documentary on you was after me and you walked out of Richard Linklater, a documentary of Richard Linklater at Sundance.
Yes.
And I was like, hey man, I want to be the one. If somebody's telling your story,
if it does happen. Yeah. Well, I'm curious because, you know, I'm curious about making this movie because you'd assume that the goal is to do something illuminating about Kevin Smith, the person, but Kevin Smith, the person has been the public brand for ever. So I'm wondering, like, how do you dive deeper into
how do you dive deeper into the shallowest man in the business?
Great question. You know, that's the brand. How do you get past what people already know?
I think what I brought to the table was that just because I've been around like a bad stink most of the time, like I have my own relationships with like Kevin's wife, with Kevin's friends, with his daughter, his mother. Like they know me as me, so I basically talking to them, they trusted me. So like Harley's interview, like it made me smile so much because she wasn't. Like, I love that she's just like, and that was before she was cast in a Tarantino movie. Like, she's just like, no, I fucking love Tarantino. Like, so through the intimacy I had in that world, basically, I was, you know, I could talk to people and I could get everybody's take on it, maybe in a way that other people couldn't.
This really does revisit times in my life. I remember these movies coming out. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about, at what points you returned to the familiar stuff, like why you did Clerks 2, why you wanted to return to Mallrats. And I'm wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, you have balls in the air right now for Clerks 3 and Mallrats 2. And I'm wondering what it means for you to be revisiting that at this point in your life, like after the documentary.
I'll be honest with you, pre-heart attack, it was too dangerous because you're always supposed to be moving forward in your career and blah, blah, blah. Post-heart attack, though, like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I was dead. I died on that table. Like, his luck of the Irish or the skill of Dr. Leidenheim that pulled me out of a widowmaker 80% of the people get killed by. So at that point, I feel like, and my wife hates when I say it, but it's true. Like, I honestly feel like I'm living on borrowed time. I was like, it ended at that table. Everything after that is fucking gravy. Because I came to a place of peace on the table where I was like, you know what? If there's an 80% chance I'm dying tonight, like, what do you think about the entire journey? And I reached a place of utter peace where I was like, you know, you had a good life. You did some cool shit. You had a great family. You were loved by your parents. You had your own fucking kid and wife and stuff like that. Like, what are you worried about? If it ends, it ends. And I was like totally ready to go. Not in an emo death metal, like I want to die kind of way, but just like, you know what? I get it. And then all of a sudden I lived and shit. And so from that point forward, you're just kind of like playing on house money. So for me, I'm like, I'm going to lean into this stuff that I deeply care about. You know, I was always kind of like doing my own thing, but there were definitely governing factors. Like, you know, I didn't do as many View Askew movies as I wanted to, because I remember reading on the internet, people being like, oh, he's doing another one of those interconnected movies. And eventually I was shamed out of it, you know, where I was like, I shouldn't do that. Now I don't care. Now I'm just like, oh, if I can get away with Clerks 19, I will. Like, you know,
yeah,
but,
exactly.
So it's very, but I also came to grips with a long time ago that I've been in the nostalgia business probably since 1995. Like Clerks is the only real like original and finger on the pulse of the moment thing that I ever said. Most everything else I do is predicated on looking back. You know, even Mallrats is like, comic book fandom is constantly about something that happened back then, not what's happening right now, not what's happening in the future. Comic Book Men, when we did the show, like I was really faced it when we were doing Comic Book Men, because I'm like, this is a show about middle-aged men talking about toys they used to have when they were children. Like, we are in the nostalgia business right now. My biggest project coming up this year, other than Clerks 3, is Masters of the Universe at Netflix. It's not only is it nostalgic, we're not even like reinventing it. It's a sequel to the old cartoons. So like, I'm in the nostalgia business, and I pitched something recently. We were pitching this show that was kind of like, we're doing these movies pop up. So we're pitching a show about like a reality show about that. And somebody who I was talking to like at the network was like, I'll be honest with you, you're good for our brand because you really represent nostalgia. She's like, I hope I don't offend you by that. I think, you kidding me? That's how I make money in this world.
Yeah, whatever works.
It literally is. Like people like Fincher, and people like JJ, they're always looking forward or in the moment, if not in the future. Everything I do is predicated on some shit happened to you in your 20s or when you were a child now. And I'm okay with that. Like I don't have to break new ground and stuff. Like, I had indie film under my belt, and I got to talk about comics before the whole world did, and podcasting I was early for and stuff like that. Maybe I'm getting into crypto. Maybe I'll be early there. But generally speaking, like I ain't looking to, be like, I'm going to shatter expectations and stuff like that. You could, if you look at the arc of my career, and you could see it in this movie, I've always been kind of turned in. Like, Clerks is about me and my friends. That's literally what my life looked like back then. And so since it worked, and since everything I've ever done that's kind of personally based has worked, I just lean into that. And right now, as a middle-aged man, nostalgia is a big arrow in the quiver, man, to be able to pull out and fire.
While I have you, I do want to ask you about something that I think I've only heard about, slightly rumored. And speaking of nostalgia, is Gerard Way still scoring Clerks 3?
I don't know if he'll be able to score it. That's based on a time question. I told him that I wanted him to do the whole score, and he was like, oh my God, I'm flattered. He's a fan. He's a Jersey guy as well. But I did tell him, I was like, look, if you can't do the whole movie, I at least need the opening. I need the Welcome to the Black Parade as my opening track. And he was like, you have it, done and done.
Great.
So
that hits me in a very specific nostalgia spot.
Oh, you know what I'm saying? And also me, in as much as I didn't live through it like you did, but my kid lived through it, and I lived with my kid as she was going through it. So I love that song, and I love that the boys are from New Jersey, but it also has nostalgic and emotional resonance for me because my kid was that's how she started developing her own personality. That's when she stopped being my kid and was this, a person with her own interests. She likes this MCR. What is this? And helped make me more relevant by being like, here's a band that people listen to today, Dad, as opposed to Run DMC. So, she helped as well, drag me into the future in little bits.
So like I said, I'm from New Jersey, and I've always been interested in this like romanticized idea of like the small town New Jersey story. And like in a lot of ways, like I feel like this movie is a form of that. Even like WandaVision is going to New Jersey now, which is so interesting to me. And I'm wondering like why that's so appealing to people, like this very specific sort of small town New Jersey success story, or just just the story of small town New Jersey, and why people find that appealing.
I honestly feel at this age where I am, the New Jersey small town story has replaced the Middle America story, because New Jersey very much feels more like America than Middle America. New Jersey has this incredible identity that was forged in the fire of growing up next to Manhattan. So no matter what you do in New Jersey, no matter what greatness you can achieve, it will always be in the shadow of something far larger than yourself. It's like growing up with, being one of the Gretzky kids, and Wayne is your brother. It's like, no matter what you do, people are gonna be like, yeah, man, but New York, they set the time. New Jersey, you guys got the nuclear waste. So any sort of identity factor comes from this kind of like chip on your shoulder ideal of, hey, we matter too. You're the scrappy younger sibling who will constantly have to prove yourself for the rest of your life. And that's bred into us, I feel. Not, they don't teach it in school, but it's just such a part of the state's identity. And because of that, I think it makes you try harder. And then what you find is a lot of people want to get out of the state. I was never one of those people. I was never like, I got to get out of here. I eventually did. My wife dragged me out. But out here in the business, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I've encountered every fourth or fifth person is from New Jersey. So it breeds people who are ambitious. Maybe that's because they're like, I want to get out. Or maybe it's because like you have to constantly prove yourself over and over again if you're from New Jersey. It's just built into who you are. And I think that constant struggle for identity, to be like, I'm here and I matter, plays incredibly well across the world. Like, it's an American story. And it doesn't get much more American than New Jersey. It's the crossroads of the East Coast. Like, a lot of people who work in Manhattan live in New Jersey, you know? So it's like they go somewhere for a big adventure, but when they put their head on the pillow at night, it's someplace real. Like, and I think, and honestly, it's credibility you cannot fucking buy in this world. So many people have given me benefit of the doubt or welcomed me into their world simply by geographical lottery, the luck of where I was born. For some reason, they feel it makes you more authentic. And I hope they're absolutely right. I feel more authentic, but I don't know who I'm basing or comparing that against, but I just know my New Jersey roots, it's kind of in you. You just constantly have to prove yourself over. It's, to be honest with you, early in my career, it was exhausting. If you look at my early career, I'm constantly like battling back and stuff. That is so fucking New Jersey. Like, obviously, over the course of the last 15 years, I've been a stoner, and that has like kind of softened the Jersey in me, you know. But with Jersey, you're always got your dander up, and you're always ready to prove yourself. That's just, it's in your blood.
Yeah, as someone named Vinny from New Jersey, I get that pushback a lot. So yeah, just one last question for you guys. And I'm wondering, just sort of, since this is a documentary made by someone who knows you personally, and I'm wondering if there was a moment, particularly, I don't know, in the interview process, you're gathering all the stuff that you personally, Malcolm, found a new insight about Kevin that you didn't know before, or a moment where you were like, wow, that's illuminating for me, and I know this guy.
It was basically kind of the zealousness of it all. Like, even though I'm being around it all and seeing it, when you actually kind of like throw it all up on paper and kind of be like, oh, fuck. Like, internet, check. Like, Marvel, check. Like, it's like podcasting, check. It was a really kind of, it's a very impressive, you know, it's a very impressive track record. Like, Kevin's kind of been ahead of things. And literally, I think the most important part to say about it is that it's been following his own thing. It's not like he sits there and he's like, I want to be on top of the new thing. He's like, this interests me. I'm going to go this way. And it infuriates people. It confuses people. But ultimately, he's usually proven right. Like, and like,
Not about yoga hosers. That one I'm still smarting from.
You always get one. You always get, there's room for one bump in the road.
That's the exception that proves the rule Malcolm's talking about.
That's what I learned.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I think that's actually all the time I get with you guys. But again, this movie,
thank you so much, man.
Movie spoke to me on a very personal level, and I appreciate it. So,
did you enjoy it?
Of course, yeah, I did.
Did
And
you
I was like,
places that you knew, because you're North Jersey, but did you see shit where you're like, I know that?
I mean, I've been to Red Bank 1,000 times. You know what I mean? Like, I when I'm going down to Seaside or Asbury Park, we stop in Red Bank, or, you know, I've spent many a 4th of July in Red Bank. That's
hey, with the fireworks. Very
exactly,
nice.
yeah. Been there a million
times. As a New Jersey person, was Walt one of your favorite characters in the documentary?
It's so funny. Like, people don't understand how familiar that is. Like, I'm just like, yeah, all of this, that's people I know, it's people I've met. Yeah,
that's I love like Walt's one of my favorite people in the whole universe, and I love how just like Walt's Walt. And,
yeah,
you know, there's no stopping Walt from being Walt, and
there's
so
no
to have the privilege
needed.
of to sit down and talk to him, he just, like, when I explained to him Kevin's pot use, and like that was all genuine, like that wasn't a setup.
Where he's like, there's no way he's been smoking for 10 years straight. You're like, he's been high every day for 10 years. He's like, nobody could do the same thing. What I found so ironic about it is that dude was literally like, nobody could do the same thing for 10 years. And he's literally sitting in the comic book store.
He's been doing it for 10 years.
2 decades.
That didn't even occur to him.
Fingers every day. It was mound bending to me.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, man. That was amazing. Thank you.